Well, if you've been down the beer aisle lately, you probably noticed the growing number of barrel-aged beers. The popularity of drinks means that there's more demand for used barrels. As Barbara Brosier reports, that's creating new businesses, opportunities for distillers, and turning an underground industry mainstream.
As you step into Upland Brewing's wood shop in Bloomington, it quickly becomes clear where the building got its name.
A lot of our growth the last couple of years has come from our sour program and barrel-aged beers. So this has been something that we've invested a lot of resources into, something we love to do.
Upland opened this facility 2 years ago to help support its growing sour ales program. And all of these stacks of wooden barrels are essential to its success. The brewery formed a partnership with Oliver Winery more than a decade ago, trading a few cases of beer for a few wine barrels. And Upland started using them as fermentation vessels for sour beers.
We actually are using them for the wood itself in fermentation. So the microorganisms live inside the wood. And we need the barrels to really be kind of neutral. We don't want a ton of flavor. We just need a vessel for this really amazing fermentation.
Upland uses barrels in a different way for its non-sour or clean beers. Brewers use bourbon and other spirits to add unique flavors to certain brews.
We will just fill those barrels with fermented beer and let it sit, typically 6 months to a year. And after about 6 months, we'll start tasting them, seeing where they are and making the decision on whether these beers are done yet or whether they need more time to mellow out and let all the flavors of the barrel kind of blend.
In addition to Oliver, Upland has a good relationship with a few Kentucky distillers, so oftentimes getting a barrel is as easy as making a phone call. But that's not the case for many smaller, newer breweries.
It's like becoming a detective to try and find it.
Noah Steingraber is in charge of national and international craft sales for Kentucky Bourbon Barrel in Louisville. He fields a lot of calls from brewers around the world looking for specific barrels. It's his job to track them down.
It's kind of funny when I get those requests. It's like, you got to think, Pappy Van Winkle, 23-year-old. How many bottles come out of that barrel? It's a pretty small amount than a 4-year-old, you know? And it's so hard to find the bottles, let alone let's try to find just a barrel.
Kentucky Bourbon Barrel gets most of its barrels directly from distilleries. When they first arrive, coopers inspect and repair them before they're sold for other uses. And while many of the thousands of barrels in this warehouse held bourbon or whiskey, brewers are also on the hunt for other vessels.
So it's interesting to see how it's continued to evolve, not just from bourbon, but into other barrels such as wine, rum, tequila, maple syrup, hot sauce. You know, there's so many different things out there that people like to use.
The cost of buying barrels can add up quickly, with some running well into the hundreds of dollars. Like with most businesses, it's cheaper to buy the barrels in bulk. But that's not possible for many smaller breweries, and it's created an opportunity for more regional and local partnerships between beverage makers.
We learned early on that one, we didn't have a very big marketing or advertising budget, and this was an easy way and an effective way to get our name out among folks that wouldn't necessarily have ever heard of us. And it's, I think, a very rising tide lifts all ships mentality.
Hotel Tango in Indianapolis makes several different spirits, including bourbon and whiskey. It recently started partnering with several local breweries.
We'll provide them with some of our bourbon barrels for use in aging things like porters or stouts or IPAs. And then on the back side, we will then get some of those new barrels back and age some of our bourbons. We'll finish them then in some of the porters or the stouts barrels that we would get from the breweries.
Hotel Tango is getting more requests from people wanting their used barrels. And while it's not something the company planned for when it started 5 years ago, its leaders are raising their glasses to the opportunity.
I think it's something that distilleries have to embrace. I mean, it is a little bit of additional work, but I think it benefits everyone who gets in that kind of a relationship or collaboration.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Barbara Brosier.